All right, let's get started. Welcome to the webinar, 6 Ways to Go Green and Keep It Clean When Preventing Rust. So I'm Kristen Moore. I'm a project manager here at ARMOR Protected Packaging, and it's my voice that you're going to hear for the next 30 minutes. And my co-host today is Ryan, and he is the one who is manning that question and answer box. He is our industrial sales manager. So at any time that you have a question throughout that webinar, then feel free to type it in the question box. And when I ask you a question, if you'd like to write the answer right in that question box, that will work. So for some of you who are on this webinar, you might be very familiar with ARMOR, but for others, this might be an introduction or reintroduction to ARMOR. And while we manufacture at ARMOR rust prevention and rust removal products, we know that our purpose is to protect your brand, your customer's brand, your parts, your customer's parts, and most importantly, your reputation. And how we do it? Well, it's what we call our thing. We make clean, safe, and easy rust prevention and rust removal products. And we call ourselves the ERADICATORS of RUST. And our secret weapon for fighting rust is that first bullet point you see on your screen. It's VCI technology, or vapor corrosion inhibiting nanotechnology. And we also make a rust remover, which is Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath. And that's located at over 9,000 retail locations in the United States and Canada, like Home Depot and AutoZone and Canadian Tire. But what many of you might find most interesting is that second bullet point from the bottom of your screen. Over 90% of Fortune 500 industries, well, they rely on ARMOR. So here's the webinar today, and here's how we're going to break down 6 ways to go green and keep it clean when preventing rust. The first, we're going to talk about 6 ways ARMOR goes green. Or what I really mean by that are these are the 6 ways you are going green by using ARMOR products. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about why bio-based and compostable plastics are not the answer. And then last, we're going to talk about, well, what is clean, safe, and easy rust prevention? So before we get into the 6 ways ARMOR goes green, I want to be clear by saying this. We at ARMOR, we're not claiming to have the silver bullet to save the environment. There is a long way to go for that, for all of us. What we are saying is that we want to be part of the solution. We are working as hard at being outstanding stewards to our beautiful earth as anything else we do. However, there is so much talk about the environment these days, it can be confusing. And we'd like to clear a few things up by talking with you about the 6 ways that ARMOR is going green. So way number 1, the first way that you're going green by using ARMOR products and that we're going green is that ARMOR products are recyclable. You know this, and I know this. Recycling is one of the best ways to positively impact our environment and our human race. Recycling helps to reduce the pollution caused by waste. It reduces the need for raw materials. So when you are finished using ARMOR film or paper, recycling it. Because recycling 1 ton of ARMOR wrap saves 17 mature trees, 7,000 gallons of water, 3 cubic yards of landfill space, 2 barrels of oil, and the energy equivalent of 165 gallons of gasoline. So in that question box that we talked about earlier, if you want to connect with Ryan and you want him to talk with you about your local area and get you connected with your technical sales manager about how you can continue recycling ARMOR products, then just type in that question box, Ryan, I want to learn a little bit more about recycling, and he will connect you with your technical sales manager. All right, number 2 is recycling content is money well spent. So what do I mean when I say recycled content is money well spent? Well, in layman's terms, recycled content is the stuff that makes up the product you are buying. And that stuff or that ingredient is made from recycled material, or what I call recycled content. So by the end of 2020, we expect to have a minimum of 30% post-consumer recycled content in all ARMOR poly VCI films. You might be asking yourself, well, what is post-consumer content? So to understand that, let me tell you first what's pre-consumer content. So pre-consumer content is the waste sitting over at a plant while making a product. So here's how I like to think about it. I like to think you're making a batch of cookies and you roll that dough out and you cut out those shapes. And then you take all those little scraps of leftover dough and you re-roll them together to make more cookies so you use up all the dough. Well, that's pre-consumer recycled content. Now, the bigger deal is post-consumer. So through our manufacturing partners, they bring back the poly that's been used. And with the advances in technology, we can clean and reuse that material to provide you with VCI films that contain post-consumer content. And with those advances in technology, the price is not increased. So you get the same great quality material and you do something good for the environment. So let me just say this again, because recycled resin is continuing to improve in cleanliness, and recycling continues to gain more and more ground each year. Utilizing this recycled content, well, it just makes sense to us. So we utilize recycled content in any of our products, and we don't pass that cost on to you. Number 3 is source reduction saves oil production. All right, so what do I mean then by source reduction? In layman's terms, source reduction just means you get the same result from your product, but you use less energy to make it. So again, source reduction is you're getting the same result from what you're buying, but you're using less energy to make it. So let me give you just a real life example of something in your house to talk about that source reduction. So think about a light bulb. Now look at the left-hand side of your screen. This is what I call like the old or traditional light bulb. Technically, it's the incandescent bulb. You get light, but it gives off about 90% of its energy as heat, not light. Now with the improvements in technology, look at the right-hand side of your screen. We have LED light bulbs. They don't waste the same amount of energy. LED light bulbs use about 75 to 80% less energy than a traditional light bulb. So there's source reduction. You still get light with the LED light bulb. You're just getting your light much more efficiently. So we did the same thing with film. In 2005, ARMOR was the first manufacturer to use an innovative engineering to bring you multi-layer or co-extruded films to the market. And we call that film the Defender. All right, so go back to the left side of your screen right now. That left side, that VCI mono film, that's traditional film. The VCI, for lack of a better word, is just everywhere in the film, which means about 70% of that VCI, well, it's not used. Now go to the right-hand side of your screen. With that new technology, we have the Defender film. That Defender film has 3 layers. So we're putting the VCI only on the layer that's close to the metal. And then in between, we have a unique barrier layer. And then that last layer, it allows us to down gauge the entire film by about 25 to 30%. So I'm not going to get too technical right now talking about it. But in terms of down gauging, if you're familiar with VCI film, you know that a Defender is what we say 3 mil with a 4 mil EQ. That is just a fancy way of saying our new technology allows us to use 3 mil thickness of film to get the same result as a 4 mil film. So it's just like the LED light bulb. We're using better technology or source reduction at its finest. So if you'd like to hear more about this Defender film and you'd like either a sell sheet or some more information on our Defender film, then go ahead in that question box that we practiced earlier, just type that to Ryan and say, hey, yeah, send me some information about ARMOR's Defender film. All right, the 4th way that ARMOR goes green, or you go green by using ARMOR products, is what we like to stop and talk about, the biodegradable fable. So far in this webinar, you might be like, okay, yeah, I know recycling is good. And I know using recycled content or recycled material is good. And I even get how LED light bulbs and source reduction is good. But here's where things start to get a little bit interesting. Because in this industry, you're going to start to hear a lot of buzzwords around things like biodegradable or compostable plastics. And at first glance, you might think, well, this all sounds great. But I want you to jot down this word, which is the biodegradable fable. Because as Jacqueline McGlade, a chief scientist at the UN, put it so well, biodegradable plastics, while well-intentioned, right now are wrong. And what does she mean by that? What does she mean by right now they're wrong? Well, here's 3 ways biodegradable plastics can be misleading. The first is landfill space. Biodegradable plastics or polymer-based films, they require high temperature and a high amount of sunlight exposure to actually biodegrade. And in most landfills, these conditions, well, they're just unrealistic. So that bag that you think is biodegrading somewhere, well, it's probably not. But because of the material they put into that biodegradable plastic to try and make it break down, because those bags are still made with lots of petrochemicals and just other chemicals that are added to try and cause that plastic to break down, well, then you can't recycle those biodegradable plastics in the same manner, because when you expose them to the right conditions in manufacturing, they're pretty difficult to reuse in a recycled fashion. And then the last part of that biodegradable fable, while these products aren't fully breaking down in the landfill, but they're trying to, sometimes part of that plastic does break off. And those smaller pieces, when they enter the ocean, they can be easily ingested by animals, and they are worse for the environment. So here's a little fun fact or tidbit. When someone's kind of hitting you hard with their biodegradable sales pitch, especially right now, and we'll talk about this more in a little bit, if they're trying to talk with you about a cost-effective product that's biodegradable, you can say to them, "Are you greenwashing me?" Because that's a marketing term that a company uses when they're falsely claiming that a product is eco or environmentally friendly when it's really not. And so you can say, no, I know a little bit about that biodegradable fable. All right, so reason number 5, and we're going to take it right now back to a little bit of middle school science, is that ARMOR paper is a renewable resource. And what is a renewable resource? Well, it's in the name. It's something that the world can regenerate. But I want to pause here before we go too far and say, I think for those of us that are old enough, we've all had a little trip on what I like to call the renewable resource train. And here's an example of what I mean by that. At first, everyone is grocery shopping and they're using paper bags at the grocery store. And then we stopped using those paper bags to put our groceries in, and we moved to plastic bags because that's supposed to be better for us. And then right when we're getting used to using plastic bags for our groceries, paper bags come back onto the scene, and that's because what we said earlier. There is no silver bullet to save the environment. And sometimes the right thing to do, well, it does change. But right now, we know that paper is made from wood, and that is a natural, renewable resource that is also recyclable. Paper sustainability in the U.S. has increased due to the use of paper making technology. And we know that U.S. pulp and paper mills' energy use have decreased. We also know that over 2.5 billion trees are planted in the U.S. each year alone. And that by 2012, over 65% of the paper that was used in the U.S. was used from recycled paper. And that's the 5th way that ARMOR is going green. And now the 6th way that ARMOR is going green, I would say one of my favorites, is ARMOR's green thumb. So what do I mean when I say ARMOR's green thumb, or we've got its green thumb? What I'm saying to you is ARMOR is not new to the green movement. We've always made sure that our products were clean, safe, and easy to use. And in a few minutes, I'm going to talk with you about, well, what is clean, safe, and easy? What does that mean to ARMOR? And it all really starts with our water-based technology. Yes, H2O water. Whether it's in ARMOR's VCI nanotechnology or it's in Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, we are removing rust with water-based technology. So let me show you some of the products that I say give us our green thumb, or a little webinar slide that I like to call green versus unclean. So take a peek at your screen right now. The products in the front are ARMOR products, and that's what we say is green. So starting at the left side of your screen, right there you have Dry Coat Rust Preventative Spray. It is a rust preventative spray that you spray on. It dries to the touch within 30 minutes. It doesn't leave any type of greasy, oily residue. It is, again, water-based. It's a green product. We say use that green product versus an unclean grease. Now move to the middle of your screen. Right there in front of you is ARMOR Wrap. That's craft paper, that renewable recyclable paper that's impregnated with our VCI technology. You can take that paper and you can wrap it around your metal part and keep that metal from rusting. Use that instead of what's behind it, which is that unclean rust preventative oils that are those messy, harsh for you, horrible for the environment, rust preventative oils that are out there. And then last on your screen, you can see Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that's our water-based rust remover. It is so safe that you can put your hands into it. So we say use Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath to move rust from your metal instead of using any harsh acids. And I want you to kind of take a little note right now. If you're coming back from either a shutdown or parts have been not in process for a couple weeks now, or maybe a few months now, and you want to learn a little bit more about, well, how do I de-rust with Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath? Then just type that in the question box to Ryan and say, hey, send me some information on what is this Metal Rescue Rust Remover Bath and how do I use it instead of using harsh acids. And if you've also enjoyed those 6 reasons, we have something for you at ARMOR that we call authentic. And yes, I said that correct. One of ARMOR's core values is being authentic, which is a combination of the word authentic and fun. So we have our little take, our little spoof on Popular Science magazine. So those 6 ways that ARMOR goes green, along with additional information about the types of rust, a little bit of information about how you use VCI, well, we put that all together for you in our Natural Science magazine. If you would like this magazine, either sent in physical copy to your home or to your work, or if you'd like an electronic copy of this magazine, then go ahead and just type that in the box to Ryan, and he will get Natural Science magazine out to you. So right now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things from the webinar that I want you to fully understand, and I want to go a little bit deeper on, is what we talk about in point number 4, which is that biodegradable fable. So I bumped kind of a few more slides out to talk about it. So we're going to ask the president of our company, our VCI professor, and our rust layer, Robin, to tell us again why bio-based and compostable plastics aren't the answer. But before I give you his answer, I do want to say this. At ARMOR, we mean bio-based and compostable plastics aren't the answer for our customers right now. I think all of us on this webinar can agree. We all want bio-based film. We all want compostable film. And one day, we at ARMOR, we fully believe that that can be achieved in a cost-effective manner. But in the industry and the typical options that are presented to you right now, we're just saying those are just not there yet. Not only are the options not there yet, but we at ARMOR, we're starting to see legislation calling for a certain amount of those bio-based plastics to be used. And why we want to say to you, well, yes, we have those. We want to make sure that when we say that, we have bio-based and compostable plastics that are also working and an affordable solution for you. And while we think it's achievable, we're thinking that there are many people out there saying they have it. And we're saying bio-based and compostable plastics aren't ready right now. And this is why we're still saying that. It's because bio-based plastics, while renewable, I'm going to start at the bottom of the slide, working my way up. As we talked about earlier, well, they're for the most part not biodegradable or compostable. Now, there are some out there, but those that are out there, we say are way too expensive. And then the last point that we haven't really talked on yet is to make the products that are currently in the market, that requires a large amount of energy to produce, and it requires a large amount of land and resources to produce. We also say for compostable plastics, we've mentioned this already, those special conditions are still needed to break them down. And working from the top down on this slide, you still need high temperatures, you need the proper combination of oxygen and moisture, and you need specific organisms around that plastic to break it down. And again, what is on the market right now is difficult to compost. You can't recycle it in the typical methods. It lacks the infrastructure for being able to compost it correctly, and it can contaminate traditional recycling streams. So we are happy at ARMOR to say that all of our products meet the standard of being safe, being clean, and being easy. And that's the last part of this webinar that we want to make sure we touch on are why are ARMOR products clean, safe, and easy? Or really might be asking yourself is, what do you mean when you say that? So we took the 3 words that we value so much, clean, safe, and easy, and we put them into 3 categories that we feel would mean something to you. So the first one that we have is people. So a little fun fact about VCI, or the idea that some people don't know is that VCI started in around the 1940s of not wanting to send material and guns overseas during World War II to the guys who were in the field. They didn't want that metal or those guns to be covered in rust preventative oils because they wanted individuals who were out there to be able to grab that metal, grab that gun, and be on their way. And we want that for your people too. And maybe it's a little less dramatic than World War II, but nonetheless, we want the people in your plants to be able to work with the metal right away. And that, if you look at the right side of your screen, is what we mean when we say working with VCI is easy. And then we also say working with VCI and ARMOR products are safe. It's because we want you to eliminate those messy greases and solvent-based chemicals. And then when we say clean, we mean that green versus unclean slide. We want you to use water-based rust preventative infused into packaging. Now we talk about your facility being clean, safe, and easy with ARMOR products. Clean means using VCI to eliminate spills and accidents. And you know, again, what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those messy rust preventative oils. RP oils are horrible for your facility. Yes, they're horrible for people, they're horrible for the environment, and they are horrible for your facilities. And the spills on the floor are the #1 reason safety managers, they want to switch from rust preventative oils to a VCI solution for rust prevention. So if you want to walk through a transition with your technical sales manager about how do you switch from using a messy RP oil to using a form of VCI as your rust prevention, just type that in the question box to Ryan. And if you just type something like, we use a lot of RP oils, he will connect you with your technical sales team to talk about that transition from those messy RP oils to using VCI technology. And right there in the middle for safe, VCI technology, we're using it. It can even help eliminate or lower insurance premiums, and it protects that work environment. And then last is the environment. And I think this entire webinar could be summed up on what we mean saying clean, safe, and easy products for the environment. Using ARMOR products mean you are reducing pollution, reducing waste, reducing energy expense, reducing the creation of raw material. You know the products are safe because ARMOR products are water-based. And again, what's easier than using VCI? Now, I do want to say, as you've heard me say throughout this entire webinar, VCI, 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 and you're a little curious about, well, what is this VCI? We have a few other webinars that you might want to check out. This month, we have All the Dirt on VCI. It's a great webinar if you are selling VCI, and we have 15 reasons why rust happens, and that's a great webinar to listen to if you are an end user who uses VCI. Both webinars really dig a little bit deeper into, well, what is ARMOR's VCI? So if you're curious and having more information about VCI itself or more information about webinars in regards to VCI, then feel free to type that in the box to Ryan, and he will connect you with the link to other ARMOR webinars. So at this moment, what we want to do right now is open it up to questions. I've seen lots of questions start rolling in as I'm talking. So I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. He's going to answer some of the questions we've seen today and then also answer some of the questions we've had asked on other webinars.
Thanks, Kristen, and thanks to everybody for taking 30 minutes with us this afternoon on this webinar. Hope you walk away with a little bit of extra knowledge in an area that can be a little bit confusing. We want to send out swag bags to everyone on this webinar that wants one. What we've been doing is sending out a goodie bag with maybe some ARMOR t-shirts or hats or some cool ARMOR swag, maybe an ARMOR mask even. And then we'll put some of the literature we talked about today, the natural science, a corporate brochure, some of that we'll put in there too. So if you could put in your physical address in that question box, and if you're not going back to your workplace for a little bit of time yet, put your home office in there, put your home address in there so we know we can get it to you. Looking back at some of the questions here, we had a bunch of questions on the recycled content. And so I'm going to try to kind of just sum it up in one answer a little bit here. Part of the reason for the recycled content, on top of what we would consider just doing the right thing, using the recycled content that is out there to be used, is that there are countries, India, Saudi Arabia, that have put requirements on of minimum 20% recycled content. And we're not the first ones to do this. If you were to go to Kroger grocery store, at least here by us, if you were to look on their grocery bags, it says 25% recycled content in that grocery bag. So we're not the first ones to do it, but there are certain countries that are starting to put requirements, and usually it's anything above 2 mils or anything above 3 mils. And so we expect that legislation to come stateside at some point. And so really it's just being ahead of the curve. And rather than 20%, we're going to do 30% minimum in our films. We have 50% going in many of our films today. So just a little bit on the recycled content. That's part of the reason why we went that way and why we're going to continue to push that direction. Another great question who came from Steve was is the coax more expensive than the mono? And that's a great question. So the answer is that it is not more expensive. Coax is actually a cost savings versus mono. The way we achieve that is we're able to down gauge at 25%. And so the actual extrusion of the co-extruded films is a little pricier than a mono film, but just due to the fact that we can reduce to 25%, we can usually deliver about a 5 to 7% cost savings to you with the coax films. And we're able to, since it is a multi-layered film, we're able to pack in more VCI, which is the most expensive ingredient in that film, on the inside of that bag, so it's only where it needs to be. Just to kind of wrap this up here, we have 2 minutes left. Why focus on the green? Why are you doing this? Generally is the question, I believe. And really, I would say the answer is, customers are asking about this stuff. People that are using our product, automotive, heavy equipment, oil and gas plants, they're asking about this stuff. They have initiatives to go green, and that is murky waters. And we have been clean, safe, and easy since 1979. And so really we're putting a name to it, and we're saying we mean it. We mean it, and we're gonna learn more about it, and we're gonna be part of the solution, as Kristen said. We really do want to be part of the solution. Don't have all the answers, but we want to be part of the solution. So hopefully this gives you some talking points, makes you a little bit more dangerous. We'll continue to give you and get you as much information as we can. So if there's any additional questions you have, please bring them to us, and we'll get you all the materials we have and do the best we can to answer any of those questions. So with that, we have about 1 minute left. Thank you for your time today. We do appreciate it.
Great. To reiterate what Ryan said, thank you for taking the time. Have a great afternoon.